Hello 2DV, I hope you've all had a lovely week. I've loved the tweets and the sharing on Teams and the emails with your work, keep them coming. But what has been really lovely this week is speaking to some of you on the phone and speaking to your year group. Hopefully you've all heard from somebody from Liberton by now. It was just so lovely to hear your voices. We miss you all. A quick run through of what this week's learning is going to look like. We are still on our personal writing unit and we are thinking this week about identity, who we are and what is important to us. So pause the slide just now and have a read of the success criteria that we are going to be working on developing these skills as we move through the work this week. For the majority of what we're doing this week, we're going to be thinking about poems called Where I'm From. The original poem Where I'm From was written by somebody else, but this is a really good example of a Where I'm From poem that I want us to be working with this week. What I would like you to do just now is to pause this slide and to have a read over the poem entitled Where I'm From. Now that you've read the poem that Melanie has written, I would like you to think about these questions and to answer them in your jotter or in a Word document or however it is that you are recording your learning. You might find that you have to zip back to the poem just so that you can go back and have a read through as you're answering these questions. So what do we learn about her? What experiences has she had? What is important to Melanie? And then the last two questions are about which experiences have been positive in helping to shape her identity and what negative experiences has Melanie had that have helped to shape who she is. So if you want to go back to the poem and read it again and see if you can answer those questions for me. Now that you've attempted those questions, I'm going to share with you the kinds of answers that were swirling around in my head when I thought about those questions. So for number one, what did we learn about Melanie? I think that what we learned was that she's had a varied life with lots of positive and negative experiences. She talked about happy memories, but she also talked about darker memories or people that she had lost to show that her life has been full of lots of different experiences. The second question was, what experiences has she had? She talked about the people and family that she loves. She talked about ways in which she sees herself as different from other people. And she also included sensory experiences that she has had. What was important to Melanie? She talks a lot about happy memories with her family and names individual people. She references reading and the joy that that gave her, spending time in her garden, and then there was also food memories for her. So those were all positive memories that I identified in the poem. And finally, negative memories. She talks about haunting dreams, about pets and family members who she has lost. And then there's a reference at the end to the hospital. And we aren't actually told if that's a positive or a negative memory, but I inferred from that it might have been a more negative memory. Don't worry if your answers look different to mine. Poetry is very subjective and lots of people can read the same poem and come up with completely different answers, and that's totally fine. In fact, it's encouraged, because what I would much prefer that you come up with your own responses, an authentic response, than giving me exactly the same answer that I come up with. We are going to dive back into Melanie's poem now. I'm going to direct you towards that orange box at the top of the slide, which asks, what do you notice about the language used in the poem, and what words or what phrases help to describe her experiences effectively? I'm going to ask you to pause the slide again and reread the poem, but this time think about what language is she using and why do we think that she might have used it? In the first line of the poem, Melanie shares that she is from a life filled with colour, and that is an idea that she has extended the entire way through her poem. She has identified different colours that she uses to recall individual memories, and then she's used the structure of sharing that colour to let her talk about those memories, and that's a really effective tool in this poem. I've also identified particular examples of word choice that I help effectively share these experiences. She repeats the word filled in her poem, I am from a life filled with colour, and then the garden in summer filled with flowers, to suggest that her life has been really full and she has had lots of experiences. The miserable tells us that not all of these experiences have been good and help to capture the bleak greyness of the street that she lived in. The terrifying nightmares tell us that even though she's had lots of positive experiences, there have been times that she has experienced real fear or dread. And that word etched, I am from every pink scar etched onto my body. And if we think about what it means to etch something on into a piece of wood or even into paper, you have to scratch down quite hard to etch. And it tells us that these scars have been hard fought and that she's overcome real challenges in her life. Finally, in the green highlighter, I'm going to talk about details that Melanie has included that might intrigue us and not actually explain a memory in full. So we are told that she has had nightmares that haunt her, and when I read that line I think, well, what's happened to you? What are the nightmares that you're having and why are you having them? And we don't get that explained in the poem, but we know that they're important to Melanie because she's included them in her poem. We also have the detail of the buried cat, and I read that and thought, what happened to your cat? It could just be that the cat has died of natural causes, but that's something that intrigues me about her life. The golden pendant that hangs around her neck, the question that I had there when I read that line was, who gave you it and why is this an important necklace for you? The identical colour of the twins I love. We don't know who these twins are in relation to Melanie. It could be siblings, it could be friends, it could be her own children, but we don't know those details. And then finally, from the blue and green of the hospital wards, as I spoke about earlier, we don't know why she was in hospital. It could be that she had given birth to these twins, that could be her children, or it could be visiting a loved one in hospital who is passing away. Now, there's no way of describing all of those experiences in enough depth in a poem. If Melanie was to do that, that would end up being a piece of prose, a longer bit of writing. And what I want to share with you and impress upon you is that that is totally fine. Later on in this video, I'm going to ask you to make your own Where I'm From poem. It's totally okay for you to include experiences or to reference experiences that might not make sense to other people, because this is not a poem that is about other people, it's a poem about you. So Melanie has included these details because they are important to her, and even though they might raise questions for the reader, she doesn't feel like she has to explain them because this is a poem about herself, her experiences and her identity, and it is her choice what she chooses to include and explain or not. Now that we have read and considered Melanie's poem in quite some depth, I'm going to get you to engage with other Where I'm From poems because there are a lot of them out there. If you go onto YouTube and search Where I'm From poem, there will be a whole host of people who are reading out or sharing examples of their Where I'm From poetry. I would like you to watch at least 3 examples of those poems. And I don't want you to, you don't have to write these answers down, but as you're listening to these 3 different examples, I want you to consider what experiences are these writers sharing, okay? So what kinds of memories are they telling us about? Are these people that you are watching only sharing positive memories? Are they negative? Or are they a mixture of both? And then does anybody say anything that makes you go, oh yeah, that sounds a bit like something that's happened to me, or something that I would include if I was writing one of these poems? What do we recognise that might be part of our own experience and what is different? So if you could go and search Where I'm From poem in YouTube and listen to at least 3 of them just now. I hope you've enjoyed listening to the Where I'm From poems that you have selected. Because I'm asking you to think about your own experiences, your own memories and things that matter to you, I think it's only fair that I do that too and share my thinking so that you're not the only one that is being vulnerable. What I've got on this slide is a collection of things that matter to me, that make me who I am and that form part of my identity. Just have a wee cast in your eye over those images and see which ones you recognise and think, yep, that's Mrs. Grant, and which ones you don't know about yet. I'm just going to talk you through, I'm going to go from kind of left to right and talk you through some of these pictures and explain what they mean to me. So in the first picture, it's a picture of my kids running away, but it is them running away to the sea. And I live really near the sea, and I get down to the sea probably 3 or 4 times a week. I've been so grateful for that in lockdown that I can walk down to the beach and see the waves and the sand. So living near the sea has been a big part of my life. I've never not lived near the sea, and it's definitely something that's important to me. That next picture is a picture of my hair, because for ages when I was a teenager and in my early 20s, I straightened my hair all the time. I didn't like the fact that I had curly hair. I thought that it made me quite different, and I wasn't prepared to embrace it. But as you now know, I love having curly hair, and I love playing with it, and I think it makes me a little bit different, and now I'm really grateful for having it. So it's definitely something that helps me be the person I am. Coffee, I think, is self-explanatory. You've all been in my classroom on a Thursday morning. Need I say more? The leopard print and also the nails. When I asked my husband, what do you think of when you think of me? He went, nails and leopard print. So they had to go in there. A picture of my kids. I don't know if you guys have seen my kids, but though they are mine. And I had my kids quite young. Harry, who is the tall young man in that picture, I had when I was 20, and that has really shaped my life and shaped what it looked like. It was a fantastic decision, but it has definitely had an impact on how I've lived my life and the person that I am today. Down to the bottom corner, I don't know if you know that I have guinea pigs. We always have guinea pigs. They're a big part of our family. Those guinea pigs are named after Marvel superheroes, and we love them very much. Fresh flowers, because I always like to have fresh flowers in the house or on my desk. They make me happy. My classroom, because I've wanted to be a teacher as long as I remember. I've wanted to teach from about the age of 12 or 13, when I had an English teacher who was hugely important to me. She made me realise how excited a person could be about novels and poetry, and I thought, wow, I want to be that person for somebody one day. When I went to interview for teacher training, they said to me, what are you going to do if you don't get in? And I said, I'll just keep coming back, because I don't have anything else I can do, so you'll just have to take me. And they did. So being a teacher is a huge part of my identity, and that very much links into the picture of the books. Travel, because I had Harry at 20, I didn't get to travel as much as my friends, but now we're making up for it, and we try and see as much of the world as we can with our children in tow. So wanting to see the world that I live in is a big part of who I am. And then finally at the bottom, my husband, who I have been with since I was 17, and that's the day that I got my master's, which was a really big deal for me. So there's me sharing what's important to me. We're going to use that process and that kind of thinking to think about what is important to you. Now that you've heard about all the things that matter to me, I would like you to create a mind map of all of the things that are important to you, that have helped you become the person you are today and helped to shape your identity. In the bottom half of that slide, I've given you things that you might want to consider. So who are the people who are important to you in your family? Where do you come from, and how does that help you tap into your identity? Any food or meals that you enjoy, pets that you have. I talked about my guinea pigs. Places you loved, for me that's the sea. Your appearance, that was me thinking about my curly hair and always having my nails done. Any holidays you've been on, interests, friendships, presents that you've been given, because sometimes something that somebody else gives you becomes a really important milestone or object in your life, and any hobbies that you have. So a mind map with as many of those details as you can. Do that now. Using that mind map that you've just created, you are now going to create your own I am from poem. Each line should begin with I am from or from the, which is how each line started in Melanie's poem at the beginning of this video. I've shared with you the success criteria so that you know when you have made a successful Where I'm From poem, you need to have named the important people, objects, experiences, or challenges that you faced in your poem. And all of those ideas should come from the mind map that you've already created. You're using the structure of I am from or from the, And then you're thinking about the language that you have used to describe your experiences, thinking particularly about word choice or imagery. Remember earlier in the video, I talked about the colour imagery that Melanie used throughout and how she had used particular words to describe her experience and what that suggested to the reader. As you are writing your poem, I want you to think about, are you using the best words, or can you use imagery like similes or metaphors to help to make that experience real for your reader? We've been working on that for the last 2 weeks, so hopefully that's not something that you don't feel able to do. What would be fantastic is if you could share these Where I'm From poems with me. I did say at the beginning of this unit of work that bigger, more important pieces of work I would save and put with your marking tag and keep it safe for your best work folder. So if you share with me your I Am From poem, I will print it out any way that I can, and I will attach it to your best work, your marking tag, so that it can be slotted into your best work folder for you. Here are your choice tasks for the week. On the WordPress site, I have shared the link to the website for the pale blue box. So if that's what you've chosen to do, you'll be able to click on that from the WordPress site. Remember that you only have to do one of these a week, but if you want to do more, you're sitting at home thinking, how can I develop my personal writing skills? Or I've got a wee spare half an hour and I ran out of completed Netflix. Here, you can do more than one of these. Remember that you should be reading. It is really good for your vocab. It's lovely just now that you can pick up a book and lose yourself in a world that's not facing the challenges that we currently are. I've been reading quite a lot, and I'm currently reading a historical novel based in Dublin just after the war. I'm absolutely loving it. It is written by the guy who wrote The Boy in the Striped Pyjamas. If you could let me know what you're reading, I would love that. This week, your non-fiction article is on WordPress, as last week, and it is linked to the work that we've been doing. So it's about poetry and identity. Remember that the questions for this task are coming up on the next slide. And here they are. Remember, you can pause it so that you can answer the questions with the file up. That's us, guys. We don't have a literacy task this week because our week in class would be shorter. Monday would have been an in-service day and Friday would have been a holiday, so the work that you've been asked to do this week is slightly shorter, and I've knocked off one of the homework tasks for you. As ever, stay well, stay happy. Please keep in touch. Let me know how you're doing, what you're watching, what you're baking, what you're reading, and how you're keeping in touch with your pals, because it's really important that you stay connected with the people that matter to you. Stay safe, stay well, and stay happy. Have a lovely week.